Valiban Vitagen is the best nutritional supplement for you.
Hello and welcome once again to the Entrepreneur Global, the platform where we feature global entrepreneurs from around the world who are innovative, who are inspiring, and who make a difference in the world. Today we are joined by Shalin Balasuriya, the co-founder of Spa Ceylon, which sells luxury Ayurveda in Sri Lanka and has over 100 stores in 26 countries around the world.
Here we go.
Welcome, Shalin.
Thank you for having me. Great to be doing this with you guys.
Yes, we're very excited to have you on board. We want to know everything that there is to know about Spa Ceylon, and there are so many people who are eager to learn from you. So we're really excited. Thank you for giving us your time. So to start off, right at the beginning, how did you conceptualize the name Spa Ceylon?
See, Spa Ceylon was a planned brand that we planned very well to take overseas. So at the time we were looking at the brand, we had looked at what was happening internationally, both with consumers and with the industry. And we found that there was this big green revolution, an authentic green revolution. So this whole term herbal was now being questioned, ingredients were now being questioned, customers were demanding to know more about their products, and with phones in their hands they could. So they were looking for authentic things, and us looking back to Sri Lanka found the amazing resource in Ayurveda, and we wanted to take that out there. In taking that out there, we wanted to give it an identity of its heritage or its home. Hence, we wanted to give it a country identity. So at that point, we looked at Sri Lanka, but unfortunately, every connotation of Sri Lanka was fairly negative at that point. It was about civil wars and conflict and not great things associated with it. But when we started looking at Ceylon, all the best things that came from Sri Lanka was still called Ceylon, from your sapphires to your tea to spices and all that. So we figured Ceylon was a good fit. Spa, because that was the thinking at that point, where people were looking for natural alternatives, but they still wanted luxury. So they were looking at those things that could set off their hectic lifestyle, so that balance. And the term spa gave that feeling of relaxation, pampering, luxury, all that. So bringing those together kind of told people what the brand is all about in one go. So Spa Ceylon, luxury Ayurveda, that was it.
Yeah, and I love how all your marketing material, all your packagings, it has all these historically relevant designs. And maybe you could talk a little bit on how, you're so proudly Sri Lankan within that, and how you and your team kind of decided to hone into that and your different collections.
See, like I said, it was a very thought out brand, and we basically take four things within the brand. Number one is the science of Ayurveda, which is 5,000 years of history, deep rooted into the culture of the island itself. The other big one is the ingredients. I mean, we've got such a beautiful tropical country. The herbs, the spices, the fruits, the flowers, those become our ingredients.
Yes.
The next one is our culture, the vibrant colors, the designs, the royal motifs, all that. So three, and number four is it's the warmth of the Sri Lankan people, right? It's renowned that anyone who comes to Sri Lanka talks about the Sri Lankan smile, how warm and hospitable we are. So we wanted all those elements captured in the brand, and that's why in every, that's part of our brand story. And every time we tell our brand story, whether it's someone walking in a store and then experiencing that fragrance, those colors, the music, which is Spa Ceylon, the aromas, the ingredients, and all the design, which is historically rooted in Sri Lanka, which has been stylized, yes, but has a very unique, authentic identity. And unique, authentic identity is what sets you apart when you go international. Because if we were trying to be international cosmetic brand and we showed up in Europe looking at like a European brand, using European ingredients, it wouldn't have meant anything. So we knew that the uniqueness and authenticity was where the success of this brand was based on, and we knew that We had all that in Sri Lanka. We just needed to take it, put it together and showcase it. And that's what we do. And we are quite proud of it as well. And people who do see the brands, even Sri Lankans, when they're traveling, they see the brand, they feel quite warm and proud of the fact they see a little bit of their country out there. And we feel quite warm and proud of the fact that we get to take a little piece of our country each time we open a store.
Definitely, and it's such a holistic experience when you step into any Spa Ceylon store. Like you said, from the music to the sounds to the to the smells to the colors, it's very holistic. It's a wonderful experience. So Shalin, I would like to know about how you go about developing a product from start to finish. If you can just kind of talk a bit about the processes, the sourcing of ingredients. Is it completely Ayurveda, or do you add your own mix to it with like modern, research that came out perhaps with different ingredients?
See,
To the packaging.
I'll first talk about Ayurveda and how it's used. So, the science of the brand and science of every product that comes out is Ayurveda. There's no doubt about it. There's no diluting it. The science and the goodness of it is Ayurveda. However, Ayurveda is a fairly core science. And to make Ayurveda accessible or relatable to a modern consumer, we had to make the delivery better in terms of it had to smell good, it had to feel good. We had to make Ayurveda sexy.
It smells so good when you have a pasta or whatever.
Exactly, right? So our challenge was how to retain the goodness, but deliver it better. So essentially what we have are Ayurveda doctors and cosmetologists working together, where the science and how it works and how the core of the product remains Ayurveda, but the delivery is worked on so that the delivery is less coarse and it's more pampering and feels good and smells good. And on all those sensory fronts like touch, feel, smell, that we get to that delivery point, which is as good as any international cosmetic, but with the goodness of Ayurveda. In terms of how we develop products, there are several ways of doing it. One is there's a constant team looking at constantly looking at yours Ayurveda scripts, old formulations, all that, and looking at how we can use those formulations, ingredients in a way that it would match up to a modern consumer. That's one. On the other side, we're looking at consumer needs and then seeing how can Ayurveda give a solution to a modern consumer need. The other one is there are industry fads or industry trends that come about where certain ingredients get big, or the world suddenly wakes up to big ingredients. It happened with coconut about 6-7 years ago.
And lately moringa, right?
Moringa, turmeric made a huge resurgence during the pandemic. So when something like that happens, we've got a wealth of information on these ingredients. We've been using these ingredients in our country for thousands of years. There are Ayurveda formulas, then we get going on that as well. So that's essentially what we do. It's about matching our consumer needs with the wealth of knowledge we have, and then bridging that gap in terms of functionality by bringing the cosmetologists in. In terms of how we test and go about it, it's tested like any other international cosmetic brand, because, for instance, we are in possibly two of the most stringent markets in the world is Japan and Europe, right? The testing that's done for those two countries goes to ridiculous lengths and depths, checking for efficacy of the product, then about whether the stated ingredients are actually in there, heavy metal testing for certain ingredients, and so on. So the scientific testing is done that matches up to the highest international standards for any cosmetic, be it natural or otherwise. On top of that, we do panel testing to see the efficacy of the brand. We do ingredient testing, looking at new ingredients and old ingredients and their effectiveness. So R&D is a big part of our business and a big part of our industry as a whole. So there's always something happening. There are always new standards coming up. And also you'll see, as someone who uses products, you realize how from time to time ingredients, what are acceptable changes, like parabens, SLES, things like that over the years have changed, and then you look for alternatives. So keeping all those things in mind, and keeping in mind all the standards of the international markets, it's just a whole amount of scientific testing and panel testing that's done.
Shalin, do you all do, I mean, any animal testing?
No, we don't. So we are against animal cruelty. We do not do any animal testing.
Okay.
So it's all done scientifically, but products are tested on humans. And
Yeah.
that actually is the alternate to animal testing, but then it's on a voluntary basis and in a non-invasive way. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. That was a really elaborate and very informative answer. It's wonderful. And I love how you know, as the world, you know, talks about these new ingredients and people find, okay, in nature, this is amazing, this is amazing. It's really nice to see how you immediately go back to the books and, you know, bring that history out to the world. So you yourself said you use products. And I think now the world has come to a point where cosmetics is not necessarily just for females anymore, and the market has opened. What are your thoughts on this shift? Because before it wasn't really considered very masculine if, you know, men were, how do you say, metrosexual, as they say, you know, take care of themselves, look after their skin, pamper themselves, go for manis, pedis, all that kind of stuff. What are your thoughts on that, and how did you and how did your company kind of overcome that, and how does your marketing go along with it?
See, I think cosmetics still as a whole is still predominantly female driven, but if you look at cosmetics and fashion both, right? But if you look at what's happening in the last even 10 years, there's a huge shift of men also looking to take care of themselves. Previously, it was looked down upon almost, whereas like, oh, are you using something? What's up with that? And it's not macho to use that. It's not macho to take care of your skin, all that stuff, right? But men were using their wives' products, their girlfriends' products, their sisters' products, and all that stuff, right? But no one spoke about it. But what's happening, I think social media has been a part of this as well, with more men talking about it. Also the need to look better because you're constantly getting photographed, you're in someone's photograph or the other, you're constantly being seen. Also access to information, having this smartphone in your hand that lets you see the world and see how things are changing and how people are behaving across the world also has that effect. So men are being more conscious about the way they look and the way they dress and so on, and thereby they do want answers to their skincare issues. So to a certain extent, skincare is unisex, but there are, after a point, you do need special products for men because men's skin in most cases are thicker, they're more coarse, so you need, like for instance, if you're using a scrub, you need bigger particles. The kind of moisturizing they use is different. Of course, when we've got shaving going on, that happens almost every day, that takes a harsh toll on us. And then of course the hormonal changes are different. How growth hormones die after about 35-40, then you need to take care of your skin in a different way. So men are learning about this, men are evolving, and it's good to see, and that's something cosmetic brands are working on across the world, and that's something that we are working on too. I myself have recently started talking about it. I want to talk about it a lot more and get this conversation going as to why are you hiding and using your
just redefining masculinity, because that's what you're doing, and I think you're really breaking that barrier, and it's about time, you know.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so many guys going to gym and working out and doing all that. So if you can take care of your body, why not, go up your face and your skin?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for that. Shalin, now throughout your journey with Spa Ceylon, what would you say was one of the biggest challenges that you did face, or the hardest time that you did have to go through, and how did you overcome it?
The initial challenge was to take Ayurveda and again make it sexy, make it international, make it something someone would aspire to. Because before going international, we had to make it work in Sri Lanka so that we could fine tune it enough to take it international and grow it to some sort of scale, right? So we have to, go into that high-end cosmetic market and tell Sri Lankans who are consuming high-end imported products, hey, try a local product, which was challenging number one. Challenge number two is that not only try a local product, but try an Ayurveda product, which was seen as a poor man's medicine almost. Yeah. So creating that brand appeal that made people stop and say, you know what, I'm willing to pay a premium, buy a Sri Lankan Ayurveda product was really tough. And we knew that would be the first challenge, but we managed to get past that.
You said you were able to, market the Ayurveda and get that message out there. Was it through that holistic approach that you had? Was it through what kinds of advertising? Was it mainly social media? Was it, mainstream media? What was your biggest tool when it came to that?
Initially, I'm talking 11 years ago when it came out. Social was there, but social wasn't that big at that point. Not the kind of access you have now. So essentially, what we did is we honed in on our audience and we followed them. We started looking at their lifestyle and said, okay, let's get in their eye line. Everywhere they do what they like to do, whether it was fashion, whether it was music, whether it was shopping. Yeah. So when we launched, we decided, okay, we'll have our own stores, but we'll go to a few other stores that our audience at that point would go to. So we were selling in places like Paradise Show that had never sold cosmetics before. We were selling at places like Odell at that point never sold cosmetics before. We were at Barefoot, again, never sold cosmetics before. So we pretty much created our own channel just to get in the eye line of that initial target customer of ours. Then we started doing events, again, that included those customers like Colombo Fashion Week, other charity events, and then started sampling our products, and we got them to get used to the products and the way we spoke about it, the kind of imagery we used, the kind of advertising we did. We never did mass market advertising, but we did niche magazines, we did a lot of events, and we made it very lifestyle oriented, and that really made people connect with the brand. The other big thing we did was we did a lot of sampling, and the products really worked. So if the more we sampled and the sample was targeted correctly, people kept coming back. So that was the initial part of it.
Experiential marketing is really
absolutely. And the marketing we created through our stores alone made a huge impact. Even, I mean, if I asked you what do you think about Spa Ceylon or a Spa Ceylon store, one of the first things most people tell me is like, oh, the fragrance.
Yeah.
Right? Or I walked in and I felt relaxed. People always tell you what they feel. So that's what we set out to do. We set out to make people feel something.
Yeah.
You walk in a Spa Ceylon store, even if you're in a mall and you just take 2 steps and you feel something completely different. From the music, from the colors, from the aromas, all that coming together, it's a multi-sensory experience. So how memory works is if you engage more senses, your memory, I mean, your power of recollection is more. So that's what we try to do with people. Engage as many senses as possible when they're interacting with the brand. That's how we tell our story, so that it becomes something memorable and it's worked, not only here, but everywhere as well. Going back to the challenges part, so that was the initial challenge. Then we created all this, and the next big challenge actually came during the pandemic. I mean, we were already in multiple countries. We were growing quite well, but suddenly almost all our markets were shut at one stage, and then there was a situation opening, closing, and so on. And we were such an experiential brand that suddenly we had to communicate everything through a screen to our customers. So which brought on a whole range of new challenges. But thankfully, we managed to put things together to still manage to communicate the sensory aspects through, although it was a very two-dimensional.
How did you manage to do that?
Well, a few examples. So the first part of the whole lockdown situation across the world, we spent connecting with clients. So all we did was open every possible communication channel we could. WhatsApp, Viber, Facebook groups, every social media you can think of, phone lines, all that. In the next phase, as people were adjusting to their new normal, we started adjusting how we spoke to them about product by catering product to them. So the first part of it, where they were at home, they didn't know how long it lasted. Then we just told them what they could do at home is what they had. How do you use your natural ingredients at home? How do you use what you have in the fridge at home? How do you boost your immunity through Ayurveda, all that, and connect it. As things evolved, then we started talking to them about the state they were in. We said, okay, go ahead, get your Zoom meetings done. will help de-stress you afterwards. We know parenting in lockdown is hectic. We'll help you get the break you need through our sleep products. We'll get you your immunity booster pills.
I
So,
love your free products, by the way.
so we started speaking to our customers in a way that connected directly to where they were and not run our basic advertising that we were running before. So people felt like we were talking to them. The other big one was while they shopped online or while they interacted with product online, to give them that multisensory experience. So even the way we photograph products changed. If you go and look at our Instagrams and Facebooks and so on, you'll see we have one whole range of photography of products which is surrounded by ingredients and very rich, lush ingredients, and the language used that denotes fragrance. When you see someone squeezing a lime, even if it's a video, you can almost taste it. We wanted to create that kind of effect, that when they saw the fresh ingredients, when they saw the herbs, they could almost smell it. That was one. Then we had these super zoom images that went deep into the products and showed every granule of the product and then described how it felt on their skin, which gave them the sense of touch. Then we photographed products with props, like the cooling balm, we photographed it in ice to give a sensory feel of what ice would feel like, what this would feel like, because you know what ice feels, so you connect, right? Then the body mist, we threw it in water with fresh ingredients and photographed it that way and showed motion, so you felt what it would be like to just jump into fresh water with herbs, right? Creating that sensory feel through imagery, even though it is two-dimensional, using their memories to create that feel through different ways of using media is what we did, and people connected with it. People could pretty much feel that. So that's what I spend a lot of my time doing, sitting with our guys and say, okay, this is what we're doing. How does that make someone feel? And that is the core of everything we do. How would this make a customer feel?
How does it make you feel? Yeah, that's true. And I love how you've taken that two-dimensional image and using memory, imagination, you've created this longing to, actually buy the product and use it. So you fulfill that imagination that, that thought you've created within them. So it's amazing. It's a wonderful takeaway for all our viewers.
There's a famous saying, people forget what you said and what you did, but they'll never forget the way you made them feel.
That is so true.
So that is the core of everything we do.
Mm-hmm. Shalin, so now this is how you've managed to navigate this pandemic, and the lockdowns, the curfews, whatnot, and we just finished another lockdown, and everyone's wondering what's going to happen. How long are we going to be open for this time? What are some emerging trends that you see when it comes to your industry? And also the fashion industry, because I think Spa Ceylon is very, along with Colombo Fashion Week, you all are also very connected in that. So what emerging trends do you see?
I think there'll be a heightened consciousness about the way we live, a more appreciation for life in general. Mm-hmm. It might wear off with time, but I think as we come out of this, there'll be a heightened consciousness, and that means the people will be concerned about how they live. What impact are they having on the earth? What impact what they're putting on their skins, ingesting into their bodies, what impact it's having on their bodies. I think that consciousness will give a root to people digging a little deeper into how they consume. Environment impact, personal impact, all that. So I think brands in general, no matter what space you play in, need to think about those things. How sustainable are you? What sort of environmental impact do you have? How are you using energy? And that's one.
Responsible.
Being absolutely. And on the other side, at least even as this moves forward, there is going to be a focus on hygiene. So when we do release products, you have to think about, okay, how is the usage? Even little things like products in little pots might be a problem, because you would have had lip balm pots, right? But exactly. Are you going to be okay carrying a lip balm pot now? Because you're constantly washing your hands and you've got sanitizer, can you put your finger in the pot? So things like that, very functional things need to be looked at as well in terms of packaging, in terms of delivery, then the other big one is accessibility. A lot of brands are very one-dimensional in how their products were available. We only sell in supermarkets, or we only sell in our own stores, or very mono distribution channels. But that has to be completely rethought, because you need to be as accessible as possible. Then, of course, the huge shift to the online space. I mean, I think we all would have got there, but in the last 1.5 years, I think it fast-tracked us about 5. Absolutely. So, which is a great wake-up call. Other big one is human behavior. I mean, that's something every brand should be looking out for, is how is human behavior changing? There's going to be a lot more people working from home after this. A lot of people are going to go back to work, but there's still going to be a lot more people working from home, because they've understood it can be done, and that we have the technology and the resources to make it happen. So how will their lives change? How will the way they consume change? How will the way they interact change? So all these things bring rise to different elements that we need to take stock when we create products or create experiences. It's going to be interesting.
What I love, Shalin, in all of this is your attention to detail. They say God is in the details. And I think throughout this interview thus far, it's so, like, even the example you gave about the pot, sometimes you might not go down to that detail to think of, okay, your hand sanitizing, or, and I think that's a testament to how successful Spa Ceylon is.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely.
We spend a lot of time looking at human behavior, right? Because a lot of times brands will forget that you can have the best science intact, the best management techniques and scientific approaches and all that, but at the end of the day, your final interaction is with a human being.
Yeah.
Right. And the way, if you understand how that human being functions, then you understand how better to have impact on that human's life. Right. And anything that doesn't make impact on that person's life is not going to make him stop and watch or spend time on your brand or consume your brand or anything. So you have to understand it's like any relationship, really. If you don't understand the person you're having the relationship with, it's not going to work, right? Yeah. So we spend a lot of time figuring out how our customers behave, not just in their skincare routines, but how do they live, how do they exercise, how do they travel, how do they, what do they do for fun? Because that always gives way to, okay, how do I now better that portion?
I'm very curious. Do you have a background in psychology, or is this just...
I don't. No, I don't.
You've been learning as you grow.
Absolutely learning as I grow. I've personally been very intrigued by understanding human behavior, and that is also what I get up in the morning for. I mean, that's what keeps me going. When you plan something and when you see someone react to it in the way you wanted them to react to it, that is the ultimate high. And that's what...
Artful manipulation.
Or or a life focused on making other people's lives better.
I like that. That's way better than what I said. Shalin, you said that as the pandemic hit, most of your stores abroad ended up being temporarily closed. Are they open now?
Well, certain stores are open. For instance, London's open, Japan just closed again, Russia's open, South Africa is closed for a whole other reason. There are some riots going on. So it's been up and down. Okay.
I guess once the world actually manages to navigate this as a human race, they'll all open. What factors do you look at, or what kind of environment do you look at before you say, okay, this is a country I want to open a Spa Ceylon in? What are the key factors you look out for?
In terms of where we want to be everywhere.
Okay.
However, what decides where we go? We want to be everywhere in the sense we want to be in most countries, but of course, where we position ourselves and how we position ourselves will be based on the country and whether there's a good brand fit. In terms of how we decide where we go is a lot of the time based on good partnerships. We always go looking for an on-ground partner because that level of on-ground or homegrown knowledge makes a big difference.
On the psychology.
Yeah, and plus an operational way as well. As structured as most countries are, there's having a guy that knows the system is far more easier than just going and being able to plant. I mean, there are a few countries like Singapore that anyone can go and plant a business, but lots of other countries, India, for instance, is an absolute headache. It's a nightmare if you don't know the country and how those little intricacies work. Malaysia is like that. Japan is very cultural in the way they work. So working within that system, and then there's language as well. So even in Europe, language differences, all these things come into play. So always great to have a local partner who can navigate that stuff, and then we go do what we do best and put the experience together.
Thank you. So now we're going to move into a little more of a fun section. I mean, this was fun. I learned a lot. And so did our viewers. But before we enter that, Shalin, you have given so much good advice from, focusing on experiential marketing, how to not allow, the circumstances around you to stop you from actually marketing your products, whatever that might be, in the way you want, where you control it. Like, example, the 2D image that you still managed to get that experience out of it. You just reinvented everything. So many wonderful nuggets that our viewers can take back. But if you had to summarize and maybe pick your top 3 key takeaways that you want our viewers to go home with, what would that be in terms of advice for them?
Most key thing, something we share with our staff all the time as well, is have a deep understanding for your consumer. Right. The next one is have a deep understanding of your resources. From your consumer side, you really don't have much choice. You just need to understand them, follow them, and then figure out how you take your resources and best match their needs. On your resource side, you have options. You can add people, add technology, change your knowledge base, all that. So keep in mind, you have a lot of flexibility there. On the other side, all you can do is learn and learn really well. Yeah. So in between both of these is constant learning and being agile. Because the moment the world moves at such a fast pace now, pandemic or no pandemic, industries are changing drastically all the time. The trends are changing drastically all the time. But if you follow human behavior, you're still okay. But how people handle that technology, that really matters. You have to know what technology is coming and adjust, but you have to figure out how people handle that technology, because there are certain technologies and changes that come that go over people's heads. But if you properly follow their behavior and you make a commitment to say, okay, everything I do has to make impact on this person, then you start thinking differently. And being agile is so important, and it's going to really show what companies were agile and what companies were not in the next six months to a year, because the companies that didn't manage to become agile, even if they were not able to stand. Yeah. So that'll also, I think it's a good lesson for all of us to be open to change. Look at our tea board, our tea auction 52 years or something. People are saying it'll never go online, and it went online just by necessity, and now it's fine. So there are a lot of companies that said, no, online is not for us, that's not our thing. But how we change, like that, things will happen. But again, okay, constant learning in the middle, deep understanding of what you have, what your resources and what you have on your side, and that knowing that that's adjustable, a deep understanding of your consumer from a learning perspective. And those are the 3 things, but the big picture is brand stories now are different. If you go back 30 years, Coca-Cola came and said, this is what we are, this is what we do, buy Coca-Cola. That's not the thing anymore.
Yeah.
The brand story is two-sided now. I can launch something tomorrow and 200, 300 people can come online and just rip it apart and it can flop. Because they are part of the brand story now. It's not a one-sided brand story. Every single consumer has a amplified voice.
Yeah.
20 years ago, you didn't like a product, you said it.
And immediate and very visible.
Exactly. 20 years ago, you didn't like a product, you sat at home, complained to your wife. Case scenario, you wrote a letter that got to the company 2 weeks later and maybe someone opened it, right? But now something annoys you, you're up there doing it. So it's a two-sided brand story. So you need to know how to work with your customer. It's a relationship, and that relationship you have to treat it as a relationship. And I think companies that don't are going to be in trouble, including some tech companies in this country of ours right now. There are some really bad relationships happening. And we'll see people get annoyed about it.
Shalin, you are so inspiring. I mean, I also want to go and study psychology just to get that understanding of, that you are so knowledgeable about your industry, about your consumer, about every aspect of it. And I think that's some amazing advice to our viewers. Thank you so very much for sharing that, and so openly as well. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Now we're getting to the little fun section. In an attempt to redefine masculinity for all our male viewers out there, please tell us, what's your skincare routine like?
Definitely a face wash rather than using soap on your face. And you need to use a scrub because your skin renews every 28 days, but when it renews because of sun damage, because of different other reasons, it may not renew evenly, and that's what leaves your skin patchy, dark patches, rough patches, all that, and that ends up looking bad.
How often do you suggest doing that?
You should scrub about twice to thrice a week. There has to be a break between that. So a scrub is a minimum again. If you want to add to that routine, you should add a pack as well, because it again draws out your blackheads, whiteheads, all that stuff. But what is essential to every man and woman after a certain age is what you do at night. You're moisturizing. Two main areas, obviously your face and neck, and your under eye area. Your under eye is the first thing to show signs of aging. Look after what happens down here by making sure it's moisturized, then your face, and don't forget your neck, or you end up having a fairly young face and a really old neck. The biggest cause of aging is dryness. So prevent that dryness. The best way you can do it at night is by putting on a good serum or a good night cream, and look after your under eyes, because once it starts going, it's very hard to reverse. That is your basic routine, but I mean, you can obviously add on to that, but everyone over 25 use some sort of night routine.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. I'm sure everyone's going to run to Spa Ceylon now to buy all the products. Like, I want Shalin's skin. It looks fantastic, by the way. If your life was a movie, what genre would it be? I
hope it'd be a comedy, because I like joy and laughter, so it should be fun.
And who would play you?
Let's find someone good looking and funny and throw him in there.
Ryan Reynolds it is then.
Yeah,
I love him. Very biased. At what time of the day are you the most productive?
Midday, let's say. Between about 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock is great. But if I'm working on something, even really late night, it's something new, late night works for me as well. So I'm not a very early morning person.
Describe yourself in 3 words.
Fun-loving, driven, empathetic.
Fun-loving and empathetic. What's your guilty pleasure?
Food.
What's your favorite cuisine? That's just curiosity.
Sri Lankan. I pretty much have a physical reaction if I haven't eaten Sri Lankan food for like 4 days.
Really? Do you cook as well?
Oh, I cook a lot. I cook a lot of food. You don't follow me on Instagram clearly,
Oh, sorry.
because there's a lot of cooking in there.
I'm gonna follow you now. I follow your company.
I cook a lot. I love to cook because I find it. I love to do anything creative that I can do. Clearly, I can't do anything musical and some of the kind of stuff you guys do, but I love to cook. So cooking
Amazing.
takes up a lot of my free time because it's relaxing and fun.
So one day I would love to eat one of your meals.
Oh, absolutely.
What's your favorite perfume or fragrance?
My favorite ingredient, actually, from the ingredients we have, is frankincense.
Your least favorite?
Ylang, while when mixed, is beautiful, but ylang on its own kind of becomes like an overripe fruit for me. So yeah.
What are your thoughts on durian?
Oh yeah, durian is great. It's just not top of mind. Yeah, okay. I'll take durian.
I don't know why it popped to mind. And finally, Shalin, what in your life thus far? I mean, you have so much to be proud of. You have, achieved so much. You're in so many countries. Spa Ceylon is a like you said, a pride of Sri Lanka. As a Sri Lankan, when you go abroad and you see your store, you're just filled with a sense of nationalism and patriotism, and it's beautiful. So, with all of that in mind, what would you say is your proudest achievement and what has given you the most satisfaction?
Tough one. The whole process of being able to take me to Sri Lanka and put it somewhere else. Something that sticks with me is when our first Indian store was opening, we were in Mumbai, my brother and I were across the road, and the first huge Spa Ceylon billboard was coming up. The guys were like, the team was putting it up, and we saw it come up on the biggest shopping street in India, and that was a moment. That's a moment I still remember. It felt so emotional watching that come up. That's still something that we get. I mean, that has a lot of recall as a nice moment. But every time we get to open a store in a foreign country, and then what we always do is we do the store opening, and then we sit back and watch people go in and react and smell products, and that's just amazing.
Wow.
It makes you feel good inside. That it's also having an impact on people, right? When someone uses a product and smiles or likes it and shows it to someone else.
Happiness, relaxation, peace. I mean, that's what, like you said, you are creating feelings because people remember how you make them feel, and I think your brand and your life is a testament to that.
Oh, thank you. I mean, that is the goal.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Shalin. It was so interesting talking to you. And there's so much information that you imparted on all of our viewers. So on behalf of all of them, thank you so much for taking the time. So all of you watching, I know you loved today's interview. Stay tuned. We have more coming up. See you and goodbye.
Maliban Vitagen is the best nutritional supplement for you.